In the first days of 2026, New York's brand new mayor did something most mayors don't bother with. He rode the subway to City Hall, the same train 8 million New Yorkers ride every single day.
That was the entire point. He wanted to be the affordability mayor. He wanted to prove he was one of them. He made massive, sweeping promises. Freeze the rent, provide free childcare, build city-run grocery stores, make the buses free. It sounded like a socialist utopia built right in the heart of Manhattan. But there is a fundamental rule in economics that every utopian vision eventually crashes into. Someone always has to pay the bill. And when we look at the actual math behind this mayor's plan, there is one single number buried deep in his own budget documents that quietly admits the entire foundation of his vision is standing on the backs of the exact people he is handing the biggest reason in America to pack up and leave. Today, we are not just looking at a political campaign. We are looking at a mathematical trap. We are following the moving trucks that are already leaving Wall Street, the warnings from the mayor's own political allies, and the terrifying reality of who actually pays when the richest citizens decide to simply board a train of their own and never come back. To understand the scale of this potential disaster, we have to look at the man who built it. Zohran Mamdani was born in Kampala, Uganda. His mother was a celebrated filmmaker. His father was a professor at Columbia University. He came to New York as a boy, grew up in the city, and eventually won a seat in the state assembly representing Astoria, Queens. He proudly called himself a democratic socialist. And for a very long time, the political establishment in New York didn't take him seriously at all. Then, last June, he pulled off the impossible. Eat Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary, a Cuomo, in New York. By November, he was the mayor, and he had made a promise to everyone to fix the affordability crisis. But how do you pay for free buses and rent freezes? Mamdani put forward a tax plan specifically designed to match the state sitting right across the river, New Jersey. Here is what he put on the table. Two numbers. First, a 2% surcharge on every New Yorker earning more than $1 million a year. Second, and this is the big one, he wanted the state to raise the top corporate tax rate from around 7.25% all the way up to 11.5%. Why 11.5%? Because that is exactly what New Jersey charges. It is the highest corporate tax rate in the entire country. Mamdani's pitch was simple. It's only fair. He said it would touch only about 1,000 of the most profitable companies, the ones that could afford it, and it would raise around $5 billion a year to pay for his entire agenda. On paper, matching New Jersey sounds almost reasonable. Same rate as the state across the river. A quick jump, a quick swim. Where is the harm? Here is the harm. New York City doesn't stop at the state tax. The city stacks its own corporate tax right on top of it. So a company sitting in Manhattan would not end up paying what New Jersey charges. It would end up paying close to double what New Jersey charges. Same headline number, but a very different bill. And who pointed this out? Not a Republican. It was Andrew Cuomo, the man Mamdani had just beaten. Cuomo sat on live television on the Clayman Countdown and did the math out loud. Raise the state rate 2 points, he said. And since the city already has its own tax on top, New York City lands at roughly double New Jersey. And in his words, you would see a flight to New Jersey. Think about what that means for a major corporation. You run a company, your lease is up. On one side of the Hudson River, you pay one rate. On the other side, 15 minutes away by train, you pay nearly half. Same talent pool, same airports, same time zone. Just a smaller bill and a shorter memo to the board. The plan built to fund help for working New Yorkers came with a built-in instruction, printed in fine print, telling the highest earners exactly which bridge to cross. But the size of the bill isn't even the real problem, because when you chase the $5 billion he promised, the money starts to vanish before anyone collects a single dime. Remember that $5 billion? It is the number holding up the rent freeze. It is the number holding up the free buses and the city-run grocery stores. Let's follow it. The problem is how a top tax rate actually works in reality. When you raise the top corporate tax rate, you don't raise everyone's bill by that full amount. You only raise it on the last slice of the biggest company's profits. Analysts at the Tax Foundation ran the real math, and they found that Mamdani's $5 billion looks a lot more like $2.5 billion once you account for how the tax actually lands on corporate balance sheets. Right out of the gate, roughly half the money he is counting on may simply not be there. Then it gets stranger. The corporate tax he wants to raise is a state tax. The revenue from it flows to Albany, into state programs. It does not automatically drop into the city's budget to pay for the mayor's promises. So the centerpiece of how he funds a New York City agenda is a tax whose money the state controls, not the city. And then, this stopped being a talking point and got very real. In February of 2026, Mamdani stood up at City Hall to present his first preliminary budget, and he made something perfectly clear. If he did not get the tax increases he wanted from the state, he was prepared to raise property taxes across the board. Across the board doesn't mean the millionaires. It means the couple down the block who bought a small house 30 years ago and are living on a fixed income now. It means the homeowner who has never earned anywhere close to $1 million in his life. When a mayor says across the board, regular homeowners know exactly who ends up holding the bag. So step back and look at what has been built here, a tax that pushes its own payers toward the exits, a $5 billion promise that may really be half that, and a state law that decides where the money lands. 3 massive cracks in the foundation before the first brick is even laid. But the deepest problem isn't a crack in the foundation. It is a single number sitting on his own budget math, and it decides whether any of this survives. The first big company that walks. Because while the mayor was defending his plan on the subway, the biggest names in American finance had already stopped arguing. They had started packing instead. This is the part the affordability pitch cannot survive. You can argue about a tax rate all day long on cable news. What you cannot argue with is a moving truck. And the moving trucks were already running. Goldman Sachs, one of the largest and most powerful banks on earth, a company practically synonymous with Wall Street itself, is building a brand new 14-floor campus, not in Manhattan, in Dallas, Texas. JP Morgan Chase, the biggest bank in America, now employs more people in Texas than it does in New York. Read that again. I guessed bank in the country has more workers in Texas than in the state that made it famous. And then, the New York Stock Exchange itself announced it was expanding to Dallas too. The New York Stock Exchange in Dallas. That landing hit so hard that President Trump went on Truth Social and called it an unbelievably bad thing for New York. The numbers underneath all of this are brutal, and they were brutal before Mamdani ever took office. Back in 2010, almost 13% of America's income millionaires lived in New York. By 2022, that had fallen to under 9%. They were already leaving, and the math tells you exactly why. A New Yorker earning $25 million a year saves about $1 million just by moving across the river to New Jersey. Move to Florida or Texas instead, and the savings climb to around $3.7 million every single year. That is a down payment on a second home, earned by doing absolutely nothing but changing your address. Even the mayor of Dallas was on Fox Business openly licking his chops, predicting an avalanche of Wall Street firms moving to his city. So the exodus was never a Republican fantasy. It was a spreadsheet. It was already happening in public, with names attached. But the single most damning warning in this whole story didn't come from Dallas. It didn't come from Trump. It didn't come from any Republican at all. It came from a governor, a Democrat at that, somebody who was supposed to be on Mamdani's own side. His name is Ned Lamont. He is the Democratic governor of Connecticut. Back in October, before the election was even settled, he sat down for an interview on Bloomberg television and said the quiet part out loud. Lamont wasn't grandstanding. He was genuinely worried. Connecticut sits right next door to New York, and a huge share of its economy runs on finance. The hedge funds, the commuters riding into Manhattan every morning, and the tax revenues that depend on Wall Street staying strong. When the interviewer asked him directly whether a Mamdani administration could push Wall Street jobs out of New York, Lamont did not deny it. He did not spin it. He said plainly, "There's a risk of that." And then he added something that should stop every New Yorker cold. He called New York City the financial capital of the world, and said he wanted to be sure the next mayor understood just how important that was. Sit with that for a second. A Democratic governor, a member of Mamdani's own party, went on national television and warned that this plan could cost New York the one thing that pays for everything else. Now look at the whole picture all at once. Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat, warned of a flight to New Jersey. The mayor of Dallas predicted an avalanche. The president called it unbelievably bad. Goldman Sachs is building in Dallas. JP Morgan is bigger in Texas. The stock exchange is opening a Texas outpost. And a Democratic governor next door quietly admitted the risk is real. This is not one angry press release. This is everyone on every side of the political aisle staring at the same math and reaching the exact same conclusion. And none of them were guessing about some distant future. The trucks were already moving. The campuses were already going up. Which leaves one last question. The one Mamdani has never really answered. If the richest New Yorkers actually leave, if they take the Astoria baby route and move to Florida or Texas, who is left holding the entire plan? Because the answer is sitting in his own budget, and it is worse than almost anyone realizes. Here is the number, the one buried in his own math. According to the Empire Center's analysis, if Mamdani's plan became law, the top 1% of filers would end up generating more than 60% of New York City's entire income tax revenue. More than 60% out of 1% of the people. Stop and feel the weight of that. The rent freeze, the free bus, the free childcare, the city-run grocery stores. Who is paying for all of this? Nearly all of it would rest on the shoulders of the exact households that a Democratic governor 40 miles away just invited to leave. The exact households that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are already relocating. The exact households that save millions of dollars a year the moment they change their addresses. And the corporate tax meant to hold the whole thing up is a state tax the city doesn't even fully control. Now you understand this better than almost anyone watching cable news tonight, because they will show you the fight over the tax rate, but they will never once show you the 60%. This isn't a story about greed at all. It is a story about gravity. It started with a man riding the subway to City Hall in the first days of January, promising to make New York affordable. The hard truth is that the plan he built to keep that promise may quietly hand the city's future to the very people most able to board a train of their own and never, ever come back. When you build a city's entire social safety net on the backs of the 1%, you don't make the city affordable for the working class. You make the working class responsible for the bill the moment the 1% leaves. Mamdani's math doesn't redistribute wealth. It gambles the city's survival on the hope that billionaires won't notice the exit door he just painted neon red.